Hello and welcome to the Project Potholes podcast. Our guest is Luis to talk about the project he used to work on. Luis, could you briefly describe your role in the project management?
Yes, I came to project management from a software IT kind of career path. I did here at Sydney University, I did the computer science um graduate diploma after doing science. So I'm quite science-based, not so engineering. And then I taught for a few years and after that, entered into defense. And that's where I became a project manager by role after being a team leader in a software team for a while. So I have way too many years experience in project management in quite complex systems development projects. And then I moved into IT proper, which means it was less developing a product or a solution and more, providing IT kind of infrastructure within financial services organizations like banks, etc. So I have over 25 years of industry experience, and in the last, I think, only 8 years, I have become a an academic, gradually transitioning from one to the other.
Sure. Could you share one, two, or three specific mistake or potholes from the project, and how did they happen, and what consequences did they lead to? And then what was your initial reaction?
Sure, I will try. And I've, as you know, asked these questions, but it's very interesting that when you ask it of me, I have done some thinking about it because it's something in a long career one forgets. So it was quite useful to have this this interview, I guess, and reflect myself on it. Um, I guess I'm going to go through it somewhat chronologically in terms of my career experience. So when I was in defense dealing with, as I said, very sophisticated kind of systems, real-time systems, which had hardware, software, had to be integrated, highly contractual in nature. Um, I found out where my thinking was, as it were, when I was asked to be an engineering manager, which is weird because, as I told you, my background is not engineering, and definitely not hardware, as in electronics, etc. But the project was about building circuitry systems, from the ground up. Ethernet at the time, literally you didn't buy things off the shelf back then. And I was leading those hardware teams, even though I was, as I said, more comfortable in software. But the project was in a lot of trouble. And when I took it over, which I guess they wouldn't have asked me to be the engineering manager if it wasn't in trouble. Um, so it was a bit of desperation. And what I found or sensed, because I think I was struggling myself, but what I sensed was the bigger part of the problem was that the teams were not talking to each other. They did not understand exactly how the system was going to come together, the hardware teams and the software teams. And so I created, it was a very hard driving environment. I remember, got home around, left at about 7 p.m. every night. It was very tough, hard work. And but everybody was doing their own thing. The software people weren't talking, and a lot of the problems, even early in the project, were identifiably the kind of interface. So I created these pizza nights where we would have briefings from the hardware team leader to the software teams and vice versa. And we, have dinner there, which, as I said, we were working there late anyway. So, an extra hour wasn't a major thing. And people enjoyed it. So there's a lot of social aspects. And what is weird in this is that I was inventing stuff as a young manager, out of his depth in many ways. I was inventing stuff by seeing the problems and trying to solve them. And it was the right thing to do, I now realize. It worked. So the pothole is really when people who are, or project people in particular, who are very intent on making their part of the system, completing their work, doing it correctly, when they stop talking to other related teams, they create different type of problem. It's not in the small, but as I said, in the integration of multiple pieces. And there's not many projects that don't have some degree of complexity. So working in silos, I guess, as we now call it, is a real risk. And it proved to be in the project. And I guess what I've shared with you is some of the approaches I personally took. And the weird part is, when I left that company, the big program manager said that, oh, it takes someone really, weird and special to think of having pizza nights as a part of the project. And yet, while it might have been weird, it was literally what was needed. So we can over focus on the details sometimes in projects, and the element of social and quiet interaction, when you don't even think you're exchanging information, the informal ways of communicating are very important. I guess that's the moral of that story.
Oh, okay. Um, so based on this, I'm wondering to know that is that experience teach you about the how to managing project and how to teach you?
Yeah, I think the human element is what it taught me. And I think if you take my personal evolution as a project manager and as a person, I started very much like those people who wanted efficiency, and I was very ambitious. I was very driven. I thought myself very smart. I wanted to do things. I guess, bottom line with all of that, I was impatient. And these are the things that taught me that you can be you can be fast, but you can get there, with the wrong answer. That in fact it is worth taking the time and balancing yourself. I think the thing I guess I would say I learned is that you've got to have an equilibrium, a balanced approach. You can't burn out your team by demanding a lot of them. You can't, just focus on productivity, because you can't just focus on individual elements of the work breakdown structure. You've got to think holistically. You got to think that this is, an interesting thing that we're realizing is that, projects are a human organization, right? They are what we bringing together the people and resources we need to get a result. And it's not like we are little robots, that can do all this. And even if they were little robots, if you program them to just, dig a ditch, that's all they'll do. Um, but if it's about digging foundations that, you need, concrete, and you need other things to happen to make the end result, that takes constant constant interaction, and greasing the wheels, as I said, in a social context, making people comfortable to talk and share is literally an investment in a team that pays dividends. Because if you think you've got a plan, for example, and you think that, now, okay, we just follow that plan, I don't know of many plans that have gone exactly to plan. There's always going to be some new input, some new instance, some new uh, interaction that changes the plan. Somebody's not going to be available, somebody's going to be late, all kinds of somebody's going to be more expensive. You have to change the solution. So a plan is so dynamic that you can't rely on any certainty. What you do need is the people to be able to adjust based on what comes out, as it were. So your team and its ability to adapt, and I don't mean agile here, but that because that's a different thing, but just the ability for your team to work together, communicate easily, take all the friction out, right? To use my metaphor of oiling the wheels, take the friction out of your team. That is a huge value
Yes.
to the project. Sorry.
Um, what's one thing you wish someone had told you when you first start? And in your opinion, what are the most essential qualities or skills for a young project manager to have?
So I think some of what I've been talking about, I wish someone had told me. I'm not sure I would have been smart enough to listen. I mean, I was smart. So let me preface this. Um, I wish someone had helped me develop my emotional understanding of people. Um, when I started, I was all left brain. I was extremely smart in the left brain. And I honestly thought that's all there was. It's just maths, being good at programming, being precise, getting things done. That was my persona. That's what I wanted. That's what I was. I was good at those things. I studied. I became proficient, passed exams, got good grades, all wonderful stuff. It's not enough. It's not enough. Um, it works in certain places, but in projects, I think, the right brain, that emotional brain, that thing that I'm telling you, some of the things I did and had to learn. Um, there are people now who I feel are super intelligent and they have never studied maybe at all. I now recognize that intelligence is not just about maths and science and then engineering and efficiencies. There's a wonderful emotional intelligence that is just, being. It's like Buddha, like Zen. These people, they make the world and make the team sometimes in projects. They make the teams work. They are people who contribute without necessarily, being great at, Gantt charts. So a lot of leaders are those types of people, and I never appreciated that when I was young. I think I would always say I felt the people like that got there accidentally. They didn't deserve to because they weren't as technically smart as I was. But if you look at people like, and everybody talks about Steve Jobs, founded Apple and all that, he was actually um, an interesting mix, I think, because he was never that freaking smart, I don't think. That was Steve Wozniak who built all the stuff, right? And he wasn't actually even that nice, I don't think. But what he was very astute about how people worked. And as I said, it's an interesting thing to use him as an example because I often think those people who are emotionally intelligent and all are nice, but actually, Steve Jobs proves that he was actually quite a jerk, but he knew how to get people working. So it's a different brain, I guess, is the bottom line. Is that it's a more managerial brain, frankly, because if you're really good at circuitry and hardware engineering, as the people I worked with, um, they're probably still doing that now because they're really good at it. But if you aren't that good at it, then I think you have some of these, or you develop some of these softer skills, then I think you become a good manager.
Thank you. And the last question is, what does being prepared for potholes means to you right now?
So yeah, this means a lot. The potholes means a lot, and I'm going to use this as an opportunity to kind of say my hope for what will come of this. Um, Potholes tell you what not to do, and we spend a lot of time teaching people what to do, right? Most of our education is about what to do. And even if we, discover potholes, we turn that into what you should do. But the chances are everybody's going to make mistakes. And therefore, being aware of potential potholes, being aware that it's okay, right? I mean, I survived my potholes. I'm still here. I've done okay. Um, Being resilient about potholes, using them to kind of move in the right direction after you hit one. These are the things I think are important. And hearing people's stories about the experiences they had, I think is I wouldn't say better learning opportunity for students or anybody, but it's certainly a valuable one. It's an interesting and relevant way of learning through things that went wrong. And as I said, there tends to be an over focus on success, um, and winning and but sometimes we can't replicate success, but we certainly can recognize a pothole. So I think it's an easier way of presenting it. The last thing I want to say about potholes is to give it some, credibility in a research context, is the software people borrowed the language of patterns, which is a slight aside, until I finish this little story. They use patterns to describe how you might sort a list, and it's like everybody's code looks roughly the same or should look. And so they abstracted the code to have a pattern into patterns, so people knew the algorithmic structure of the many different things that you had to do in software, the kind of algorithms. So they called them patterns. But they also, in borrowing that language from architects, they realized that there were so many things you could do wrong in bad structures in code, bad algorithms. And so they created the language of anti-patterns, which I think is wonderful because an anti-pattern is pretty much a pothole, right? It's pretty much saying you can do these things, but don't do this. So I think I have hopes for this podcast and the project that might come out of it from a research point of view to look at these potholes and share them, as just like we share best practices. We can also look at the problem areas, and maybe we can eventually get a map that says these are the areas where you get more potholes. These are the areas that are easy, and we can kind of therefore focus our attention on the areas that have a lot of potholes and improve it.
Thank you so much for you sharing, Luis. And that's all for this podcast. I hope all the audience found it helpful. Thank you.
Thank you. Take
Yeah.
care, all.